What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner 2049 is a sci-fi thriller film that was directed by Denis Villeneuve and is the sequel to the 1982 film entitled Blade Runner. This time we have a new Blade Runner named K, played by Ryan Gosling, who works for the LAPD in the year 2049 with the job of tracking down older models of manufactured replicants and retiring them. As K gets deeper into his search for these replicants, he starts to uncover some unusual clues about them and also the mysterious new owner of the Tyrell Corporation, which was the company originally responsible for the manufacture of the replicants themselves. And the rest of the film is spent watching Kay dig deeper into the history and mystery of replicants while he finds himself at odds with the new Tyrell Corporation. Okay, so I fully expected to go see Blade Runner 2049, come back and get on camera and tell you guys how much I loved it and how great it is as a sci-fi masterpiece that you need to run out and go see ASAP. I had extremely high expectations, not only because of the cast involved, but because of the man leading the way in director Denis Villeneuve. The man that brought us Sicario and Prisoners and Arrival was now directing a sequel to a classic sci-fi film with a great cast, and I thought there was absolutely no way anything could go wrong. I gotta say though, this has to be the most disappointing film of the year thus far for me. I didn't hate it, but Blade Runner 2049 is not nearly as good as I wanted it to be. I was expecting greatness. I was expecting one of the best sci-fi films of the last 10 years, and what I got was an okay experience that has a lot of flaws, especially narratively. I think there's two huge problems I had with this film. The first being that it severely lacks emotion. I was hardly invested in any of these characters, and I think a chunk of that comes from the fact that you don't really spend a lot of time with any of them besides Kay. And man, Kay has to be one of the most boring, bland characters that I've ever seen from a sci-fi film. I mean, there was not really all that much about his character that I ever felt invested in. Trust me, I didn't think I would ever say this, but you know, here I am. I just don't feel like Ryan Gosling fit in this movie. He doesn't fit this character, and to me, it never felt like he fit within the Blade Runner universe in a way that really had me invested all that much in his character, really at all. And that was a big problem for me because the vast majority of the runtime is spent with Kay, investigating things about the past and future replicants, and when you have a protagonist who just isn't all that interesting leading your film and being heavily featured, that's gonna lead to problems with the audience's emotional investment in the story. It definitely did for me. The other characters are okay. I feel like Harrison Ford did a good job in his return and showed that he still has those awesome acting chops, but I was more impressed by the two characters on the bad side of things. Jared Leto is really great in this film, but man, he is criminally underused. This might just be the biggest waste of an actor's talent I've seen in a film in quite some time. I mean, the scenes he's in are stolen by him and how well he portrays his character, and then you don't hear from him for like the rest of the movie basically. It really sucks. Another actor who's really great in Blade Runner 2049 is Sylvia Hoeks. Sylvia Hoeks, not sure how to pronounce her name correctly honestly, but she is really great in the role of a replicant named Love. I thought she brought a lot of life to the film by portraying a character that's full of a variety of emotions, the primary ones being anger and fear. She was great. But let's move on to my second big problem with the narrative of this film, and that's the extremely slow pace. I mean, there were stretches of time where I was fairly captivated, primarily in the second half, but there were definitely long stretches of time where I legitimately felt a little bored. Like, all of Denis Villeneuve's movies are slow burns, they take their time setting things up and getting to key moments, but Blade Runner 2049 is so incredibly slow paced. Just a caution here, the movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes long. That's a very long movie, and I wouldn't necessarily mind that if I felt like the time was completely well spent, but I don't feel like Blade Runner 2049 always spends its time productively. Maybe in the second half I felt like it was spent pretty well, but in the first half I felt like the story was moving at much too slow of a pace. I felt like we were wasting a lot of time going through conversations and investigation efforts that ultimately meant very little, or relatively little at least in the long run. I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression though. I didn't hate this movie. I'm being hard on it because of the expectations that I and probably many others went in with, and that's greatness. Blade Runner 2049 is by no means a bad movie. It definitely has some things going for it. I think the biggest pro you'll hear from basically everyone when they discuss this film is the visuals, and yes, the visuals are absolutely exceptional. The cinematography and CGI are easily Blade Runner 2049's strongest attribute. I was consistently blown away by how well this film was shot and crafted from a visual perspective. I think this is one of the best looking sci-fi films I've seen in a long time. The shots are really great, and I thought the color grading, the CGI, and the entire visual experience as a whole was very immersive. However, I didn't always feel like the film itself does a good job of world building and immersion though. The visuals do, but considering this is a very advanced and large scale conflict we're dealing with, the film never manages to make it feel that way. Everything feels so small and isolated from the outside world that I had trouble 100% engaging with this story. But from a technical standpoint, Blade Runner 2049 is great. The visuals are fantastic, but the music music composed by Benjamin Wallfisch and Hans Zimmer is pretty good too. It's not on the level of Arrival, but I felt like Blade Runner 2049's score does a really nice job of adding a real spacey sci-fi sounding score to match the visuals of the same style. It's definitely one of the more memorable scores of the year for me. Before we wrap up though, I do just want to put out this disclaimer. I didn't love the original Blade Runner either. I watched it for the first time recently and I found myself mildly invested in it, but not fully immersed in it by any means. And that's sort of the same way I felt about 2049 as well. It's not to say that 2049 doesn't have its awesome moments. It does. There's definitely some really exciting and action-packed moments that really bring a lot of excitement and fun to this film, but sadly there are a lot of other issues I had with the narrative aspects that I thought would just be a lot more impactful than they turned out to be. I think this film has a ton of style, but I feel like the narrative substance just wasn't quite there for me. Once again, it's not by any means a bad film, but it's not quite the great film most were hoping it would be in my personal opinion. Either way, I thought it had some great acting from the baddies, amazing visuals and style, and a really cool score. Sadly, I also felt the protagonist and Gosling felt off, the pace was at times insanely slow, and the story lacked the necessary emotion for it to succeed at a greater level. I'm gonna give Blade Runner 2049 a 7 out of 10, and generally recommend you check this one out in theaters, but only if you love the original or you just love sci-fi and are looking for a stylistic film. Otherwise, I'd pass. So did you guys see Blade Runner 2049 yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know whether you've seen the original 1982 Blade Runner and what you thought of it. Feel free to disagree in the comments. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.